Hello YouTube, this is an April 2019 Yu-Gi-Oh! Border Demise Gravekeeper's deck profile. No pot of Extravagance. I'm actually really pumped to have a playset of Card of Demise. So you can't have everything. I mean, pot of Extravagance is super expensive. I mean, I'm going to wait till it's reprinted, but Card of Demise is actually really good still. I mean, the deck functions pretty well, even with just Card of Demise. So please enjoy the video. This is, besides that pot of Extravagance, disclaimer, this is non-budget. So we start off with triple Commandant. Commandant is great because it eliminates the need for terraforming. I mean, those two slots that you would probably use on terraforming are now freed up because the terraforming is built right into the archetype, and it's a great beater. So we have a lot of one-ups for Gravekeeper's monsters. This is actually barely a Gravekeeper's deck with the few monsters that are Gravekeepers that I run and the amount of non-Gravekeeper's monsters that I do run. But I just tried to hit one of each of the kind of important ones here. Recruiter's obvious, it just searches the rest of them. Spiritualist for the fusion play, but these three are really the ones that you can use for the offensive capability that you really need. I mean, Descendant and Assailant, you may be wondering why I have Assailant. I mean, it's kind of an optional card to run, but Descendant and Assailant both do something offensively that will make a play that your opponent really won't see coming. It'll either turn their monster to defense mode, which may be enough to destroy their monster, and Descendant, which is can just pop one card they control. So it really will. I mean, Assailant, like I said, you may be wondering why I have it, but I think it's just good enough where it can stop your opponent from doing something that they may have to. They may not see coming, and they really may have a problem dealing with. And Heretic is good because it's just immune to everything. Actually, Heretic, when you have Necrovalley on the field, I learned this by playing online, it doesn't give your Heretic a boost because it's unaffected by everything, including that Necrovalley. But still a really good card because being untouchable by card effects is it's pretty good. So to keep going with the non-Gravekeeper's monsters now, we have 3 Fossil Dyna. Fossil Dyna is just a seriously good card for anti-meta because you're not special summoning from the extra deck you know, at all, pretty much, except for that one Supernaturalist play that you may even, which is optional in and of itself. But Fossil Dyna will definitely hinder your opponent more than it will hinder you. And also, setting Fossil Dyna turn 2, I mean, this deck has trouble responding to big boards and going second. But Fossil Dyna, setting Fossil Dyna turn 2, it actually saves the day sometimes because they can blow up their entire board, their special summon board. So I have 2 borders in here too. Border is just, it's the walking skill drain. I'm actually new to Inspector Border. I just got the card, but it gets around everything. It gets around, you know, playing online. It gets around that annoying, so many things. I mean, just a number of things. But for example, you know, your opponent normal summons Maiden with Eyes of Blue. You don't know whether to attack it under normal circumstances because you don't want them to get that free special summon of a Blue Eyes, if I have that correct. But Inspector Border, I mean, it just shuts that down. They normal summon you went first. You normal summon Inspector Border. All of their normal summon effects are gone. Magician's Rod is gone. It unfortunately shuts down something like your Gravekeeper's Descendant, which you may need if you also have if you need that popping effect. If you also have Border on the field, but still, these 2 cards right here will hurt your opponent more than it'll hurt you most probably, especially this one. But if you can get these 2 turn 1, or one of these turn 1, and then maybe the next turn you get the other one, you can seriously have a good shot at winning. So with the spells now, triple Necrovalley, this is what really turns it into a Gravekeeper's or an anti-meta deck right here. Because sometimes, I mean, your opponent may not use the graveyard, but if they do, they pretty much might as well just scoop. I mean, if they see that you activate Necrovalley and they're just like, oh man, that really rains on my parade, because I mean, it shuts down, it could shut down their entire deck. I mean, I remember online I was playing Dragunity, and which is just totally focused on the graveyard with like equipping from the graveyard. So it can't, none of those cards can move to a different place. So just a number of decks will be hurt from Necrovalley, and of course it doesn't hurt this one. So I have 3 Thrones too. You may be wondering why I have 3 Thrones, because I don't run too many too many Gravekeepers cards, but still, I mean, you can go, there's really two reasons for that. You can go right into Commandant with Throne, and then Commandant into Necro Valley. So this is essentially 3 more copies of Necro Valley. You pretty much have 9 copies of Necro Valley in this deck. Also, with Demise, you need to be normal summoning and not special summoning, and that extra normal summon of a Gravekeeper's monster can really get those cards out of your hand, so you don't have to discard them. It's not a waste. So then I have triple card of Demise. This is really what turns it from a budget deck into a non-budget deck, but I mean, very, very good, because the draw power is just insane. I mean, you're getting so much advantage out of it. I mean, your opponent thinks that your play is done, but then you have card of Demise and you just draw 3 more cards. I mean, it turns the game pretty much into like something that's kind of even. I mean, you have 5 cards versus 5 cards, or maybe if they, searched a few times or whatever, but then it turns that into something like, 8 versus 5, because you have that 3 extra from card of Demise. I mean, something like that. You get what I'm trying to say. I mean, it really gives you a serious boost in card advantage. So 3 pot of dualities too. Just like Card of Demise, I mean, there's really not that much special summoning going on. Card of Demise can be a risk because if with enough monsters, it can be kind of cloggy. But I only run 13 monsters, and 3 of those are Commandant. You got to remember, which can pretty much be equated to Necro Valley. So it's functionally 10 monsters, and Pot of Duality is less risky. Obviously doesn't give you the advantage that Card of Demise does, but still, those cards of Pot of Duality, Card of Demise, very necessary. So for more spells, I have double Moon Mirror Shield, which protects the Fossil Dyna. You pretty much need to keep that floodgate of no special summons on the field. So I do have other cards to supplement this Moon Mirror Shield, but I was thinking about the standard Mirror Force, Stormy Mirror Force, but I think I was a little more creative and a little more probably a little better, honestly, because Moon Mirror Shield in the late game can really be hard to out. If you have a monster and it's equipped with Moon Mirror Shield and they're just top decking, it may be, I mean, they have to draw a combination of back row removal and or a monster to get over your monster equipped with this card. So if they're just in the late game, each player is drawing 1 card, it can kind of be difficult for them to get around it. So 1 shared ride, which is in here because I don't run Thunder King Ryo. So I mean, it's pretty much, the mechanic of adding from deck to hand is still happening. So just 1 generic draw spell, kind of similar. Upstart Goblin, just 39 card deck. I just thought I'd include these 2 because they're kind of they can go in a lot of decks. So now I have some traps, some floodgates. I'm gonna start off with the anti-spell. And I also have Rivalry here. These cards are risky to run. Anti-Spell less so than Rivalry, but Anti-Spell will hurt your opponent probably a lot and hurt you some. So it's probably worth running, but Rivalry is definitely a risk because there's actually 4 types that you're working with in this build that I got here. You got the Machine for Inspector Border, the Warrior for Commandant, the Spellcasters for all the other Gravekeepers, and the Rock for Fossil Dyna. So if you just, let's say you have Fossil Dyna on the field and you activate Rivalry, you're locked into Rocks. And then they get rid of your Fossil Dyna. You have no more, Floodgate. You have no more body, and then you draw into something like, Gravekeepers. You can't play that Gravekeepers anymore. So Rivalry is really a risk, but hopefully some matches it will actually hurt your opponent even more than it will you. So, but if you're modeling after this video and you're thinking about whether or not to run Rivalry, I would definitely advise you to think about it. You could take this card out. You could also take this card out. So, more traps. 2 Spiritual Swords of Revealing Light. This is what I was talking about that supplements the Moon Mirror Shields. If you can negate 1 attack and survive 1 more turn, either by paying 1,000 life points or banishing, then this card has done its job. You may think that traps involving battle, whether they're Mirror Force or this card, have been outclassed at this point, but it's pretty much effectively an Upstart Goblin. If you can stave off 1 attack and then draw 1 more card, you're trading in this one for that delay of the game, kind of getting the same result as an Upstart would in terms of like just surviving 1 more turn. So I do include it to protect the Fossil Dynas, like I said. So Heavy Storm Duster is the next one, and then you know, just obvious choice to get rid of back row. This could be 1, 2, or 3, or 0. I just have it on 1. That's how I have it. And then finally, we got the Solemn cards, 3 strikes and a judgment. Solemn Strike. If you can afford the $5 for Solemn Strike, then I would go ahead and get it, because I mean, it really is the best generic trap. It's really seriously solid. I mean, they can have go into a Link 4 monster. I mean, they can use all of their materials to set up for a big play going into Skull Dread, or you know, Firewall in the past, or you know, something like Borload. And they may think that they have, you know, a big play coming up, but if you can negate the summon and then also stop that effect from happening with something like Skull Dread, you can get rid of all of their advantage, because they use maybe 4 materials to go into that Skull Dread. So seriously good card, Solemn Strike. So for the extra deck, really not going into the extra deck at all, pretty much. But the one card that you really need is Supernaturalist. This is the one that protects your Necro Valley, and also is protected by card effects, and it has a lot of big stats because of its effect. So one of these guys is just the boss monster. You got to, if you're playing Gravekeepers, you got to include it. So, but it is, you know, if you're going with a more you know, generic anti-meta kind of build, and you want to take out Spiritualist altogether because you don't think it serves that big of a purpose, you know, that's why I only have one Supernaturalist. Because I only have one Spiritualist, but it's probably optional to take it out altogether if you're going for, you know, a less Gravekeepers oriented build. So just a lot of rank 4s coming up. Double Castel, Dweller, great in this deck. Baguska, Cowboy for that burn damage, and Giant Hand. Just, you know, sometimes you're going into these cards. They're really in here just in the back pocket if you need them. But it's an extra deck that it pretty much you never need. I would say that, again, Supernaturalist is the one that you do need, and then maybe Dweller, you know, but still those extra deck plays aren't happening too often. Then I have a bunch of just generic links now coming up. Underclock Taker, Wee Witches, Summon Sorceress. I had these in my budget version, but I mean, these are just cards that, you know, generic ATK differential situations. Dark, I mean, you need a lot of monsters to go into these two. I mean, this one at least will benefit the monster that's pointed right under it, but I mean, and kind of make the play that you need. But this one only gives a 500 boost, and this one, you know, you need 3 monsters, so it's a lot of commitment to in your board presence to go into Link monsters in this deck. But I have the Nightmare package, you know, just for a good measure, just cards that you can use in any time. And this deck actually lacks resources to go into extra deck staples like Nightmare Phoenix, which you may actually need sometimes. But you know, the Nightmare cards are in here because there are situations where you need them. But I actually like, you know, to be honest, I play with pendulums a lot, and I prefer playing with decks that do have a lot of extra deck utility and access to the extra deck. But, you know, I just have these in here because you can go into them. That's kind of the point I'm trying to make. You can go into them, but probably not. So lastly, I just got some boss monsters, Borload and Borosword. You know, just if you have 4 monsters on the field, or maybe you have Nightmare Phoenix, you can use that as 2 materials for a Link 4. I mean, these are just cards that can go in pretty much every deck, so I just have them here. Thanks for watching. This was the April 2019 Border Demise Gravekeepers anti-meta deck. So thanks a lot. Have a good one.